It's time for ProAm Predictions.
Hello and welcome back to ProAm Predictions. I am Paul O'D representing the amateur side. And of course, as always, on the professional side, I have Bellator bantamweight contender, Mr. Brian the Pikeman Moore. How are you doing today, Brian?
I'm buzzing that Bellator is back. It's the season starts now, so here we go.
And what a card to start out with. It is absolutely phenomenal. The featherweight title is on the line, and even just looking down through some of the prelims are pretty good fights, so interesting one to kick things off.
No, it's stacked, and you can expect that as well. You know, the main cards are just going to be jam-packed, but Bellator always have good prelims too. So I can't wait. And you know, we've been, I suppose it's April. You know, we've been waiting, so you know it's coming at the right time. Again, fantastic card, and just the cards that are lined up for the next few weeks, couple of months that are out already. They look phenomenal. So we're getting spoiled here.
And I see, of course, you're repping the brand hard there in the background. couldn't be coming on without the Bellator t-shirt.
No, I'm happy to be I'm obviously happy to be competing again in a few weeks, but I'm happy to see the show go ahead. Massive news now that it's going to be on Virgin Media here, which is phenomenal. You know, and then of course on Showtime in the States. So it's big news all around for Bellator. So I can't wait to see what the Showtime deal does. I can't wait to see more eyes on the sport over here again with Virgin Media deal. So it's a win-win.
Yeah, I think Bellator have gained a massive advantage on the UFC here in the BBC and the Virgin Media deal. There was a little concern for me when BBC got done, because I know when they were talking about the iPlayer, I know that's not available in Ireland, but you kind of reassured me that they'd get something over the line before any fights took off for this season for the Irish fans.
Yeah, people just panic too much about shit like this. Bellator always managed to get it done. It's happened a few times where I fought and people lose their shit because they don't know where to look at it. And at the end of it, there's always a means. They always deliver. So, you know, I knew there was going to be a big deal in store. I'm just delighted it's Virgin Media because that is enormous.
Yeah. Not to go too far off topic, but we do need to touch on last week's card as well. What did you make of Francis Ngannou in the main event last week?
You couldn't have scripted it better for him. He done amazing. I thought his just performance looked so much more polished. I was as like we spoke about it, I was a little bit maybe I was hesitant to pick him because he had such little cage time since the last time he fought Stipe. But he looked great. He got the stuff to take down, but not just stuff to take down, but it hurt him while defending the takedown.
Yeah.
Then he took a shot, kept composure, and caught him with the left hook on the way in. So I thought it was just such a well-polished performance. So it's going to be, I hope it's the John Jones fight next. I'd love to see Stipe walk away from it now, to be perfectly honest.
Yeah.
I think that, you know, and don't get me wrong, Stipe is a savage. His skills, I don't think, have diminished, but he's taken heavy shots. He's been in the hardest, heaviest fights because he's been the champ. I think his legacy, I think he's one of these guys who will get appreciated after his time is, you know, and I'd like to see him walk away because he's had 2 fights with the biggest mutant the sport has ever seen, and he's taken some big shots. So I'd like to see him, you know, walk away, legacy intact, you know, and I'd like to see Francis and Jones next. But yeah, it was a great fight, great card yet again.
Yeah, what struck me about the Francis Ngannou performance was when he stuffed the takedown, sprawled out, and then spun around to the back. I was like, oh shit, we've got a different animal altogether again.
Yeah, but the shots he landed from wasn't quite turtle because Stipe had got up to his feet, but they were heavy shots. Like they're all concussive blows when you have a man that's his fist is as big as his fucking laptop here. You know, he's so powerful, and it's going to be a super interesting. Like whether it's Derek Lewis next, I'm kind of hoping it's not. I hope they can do something with John Jones. But that's just that's a drama as it is. So maybe Lewis stepping in there now and keeping Ngannou active is the way to go forward.
And what do you make of the John Jones situation? Obviously asking for, he said, show me the money. And there was a series of tweets. And then he said 8 to 10 million isn't close to enough to fight for the heavyweight title. Now, bearing in mind that he's a man that's never cleared 1 million pay-per-view buys in any event he's been in. Do you think he's worth that kind of money?
I think possibly at heavyweight, at heavyweight he's certainly worth more. I think with Ngannou is quite a star now as well. I think they'll grab more pay-per-views, but not to take anything away, John Jones is the best mixed martial artist probably of all time. But it's the entertainment business too. So if he's not selling it, does it warrant an 8 to 10 million paycheck? And even that he says that's not enough. So yeah, look, I can understand where he's coming from. He wants to get his payday. He's taking an enormous risk going up and fighting. I already said the scariest man that the sport has ever seen. So I can see him wanting his money, but I think he's been far too ambitious, looking for 8 to 10 million here.
And to be fair, Derek Lewis did come out and say, "Shit, I do it for 8 million."
Paul, I do it for 4 million. No fucking.
Listen, I do it for 500,000, and I'd probably put up a better scrap than John Jones as well.
I don't know. I think if that goes ahead, if that goes ahead, I'd have to have a long, hard think about who I think is going to win that fight.
No. That's Francis all day long.
I don't know, man. John Jones he's the smart. I think he's the second smartest fighter that we've ever seen. I think the smartest fighter has been George St. Pierre. I think when it comes to just being a smart athlete or smart fighter, smart athlete, I think John Jones is there.
You not ranked Demetrius Johnson up there?
I was just about to say Demetrius, but I think Demetrius probably played a little bit more towards his physical attributes. He was so fast. Now, he was extremely smart too. I know John Jones is like enormous attributes. He's a massive, huge reach. Obviously, GSP is a specimen too. But they're extremely smart fighters. But I think John Jones just always knows how to win.
Yeah.
Always.
For sure. We are going to move on to Bellator. We'll stop talking about UFC now since you're repping the brand.
100%.
We'll start out in the main card. Opening up the main card, you have Kana Watanabe versus Alejandra Lara. And this is a phenomenal fight. There's a lot of hype around Kana Watanabe. And this is no easy task going against Alejandra Lara. She's 9-3 overall. She's on a 2-fight win streak, and those wins are over Vita Ortega, who's very tough, and Taylor Turner. Her only losses, this is startling for me, her only losses are to Juliana Velasquez and Ilile McFarlane, the champion and previous champion in Bellator. Outside of that, her only loss is Sabina Mazo, who's a UFC contender.
Yeah.
And look, obviously the hype around Kana, she has 3 KOs, 3 subs in her 9 wins. She's undefeated, 7-fight win streak since draw early in her career. And big performance in her debut, TKO over Ilara Joanne. What do you make of this fight?
I love this fight. I think this could be fight of the night.
Yeah.
You've got Watanabe, who's coming in with a massive amount of hype and who's a finisher. You know what I mean? At this weight as well, which can be rare enough, but she knows how to finish on the floor and on the feet. She's going in against Lara, who with a couple of adjustments is right up there as a title contender. She lost to 2 studs. She lost to the champ and she lost to the former champ. And besides that, she's looked fantastic. She's tough as hell. So it's the perfect ingredients for a scrap. I think this is going to be fight of the night. I'm really torn, but I'm gonna follow the hype train here and go with Kana on this one. I think she gets it done. I think she's going to struggle to get the finish, even though she's just a natural born finisher. I think Lara is just super tough. And I always look at I always look outside. Wonder how these camps have gone. But I wonder what Lara's response, you know what I mean, to she had 2 tough losses, has looked better since. Is this going to be now her kicking on, realizing her potential? I hope it is. I think that'll make it even a more interesting fight. But right now, I'm going to go with Kana Watanabe. I'm going to pick her by decision in a fantastic fight.
Yeah, for me as well, it is Kana. The big standout thing here for me is if Lara was just coming off the back of those 2 losses to Velasquez and Ilile McFarlane, I think Kana would be more capable of getting a finish in this one because maybe Lara's confidence would be down. But I think off the back of her last 2 performances and 2 big wins and kind of she's already turned it around a bit for herself in that division, and she's staked her claim as a real contender in that division. I think Kana's up against it here, and I can see it going to a very, very close decision, but I do see Kana edging it just on activity.
I think the more technical this fight remains, I think Kana Watanabe's will be favored for it. If Lara can make this a little bit ugly, can really push her, can
grind on her,
threaten her from grind, but threaten her from all ranges, get her tired. I think it opens up more and more for her. That being said, I still can't see a finish happening in this because the two of them are so highly skilled, so tough. But yeah, ultimately I'm going to go with Watanabe by decision on this in a blockbuster, in a great fight.
Great way to open the card as well.
Yeah.
Up next, you have Usman Nurmagomedov versus Mike Hamel. This one for me is a little bit one-sided, but that's just because one of them is a Nurmagomedov. So he's making his Bellator debut. He's coming in 11-0, 7 KOs, 3 subs. The one big question mark for me around Usman is the level of competition that he's faced. If you go through his record, there are some decent people on there, some veterans on there, but there are also some tin cans on there, let's be honest about it. So it's kind of 50-50. He has been tested at points in his career, but not repetitively tested. And we know that Mike Hamel has. He's 7-4. He's coming off a loss to Boric, Adam Boric, apology.
Adam Boric, yeah.
The win over Serrano and a loss to Bruno Souza before that. The Boric fight was his debut, and he's 2-3 in his last 5, which worries me a little bit. He could be on a bit of a slide, and I don't know if he's ready to make that step up to the Bellator level. I see Nurmagomedov picking up this one by grinding out a decision. How about you?
I have Nurmagomedov all day on this. You spoke about the level of competition, but if you look down through a lot of these guys, even Habib's. We know everyone's talking about, you look at his early career, there was a lot of questionable matchups. Yet these guys are getting tested on a daily basis against each other.
Yeah.
The level of competition they face twice a day, Monday to Saturday, is huge. So he'll be well versed, and he's been in the deep end plenty in the training room. I'm certain of that. I think he goes in and he puts on a dominant performance, and I think he puts away Hamel in this one. I think he'll TKO him or submission. I'm going to go to submission in this though.
Very good. And you mentioned it there. Nurmagomedov is, of course, as far as I know, he is Khabib's brother. There's always some confusion about whether it's cousin, brother, or different.
I thought it was cousin. No, I thought it was cousin.
I was under the illusion anyway that Usman was his brother when he first signed. Either way, we know he's training with Khabib, and there has to be an element of when these guys are coming up through the ranks that nobody wants to fight them. So perhaps that's a reason their records are a little bit watery and thin when you go down through their first 10 or so fights.
Yeah, but this fight kind of is a good level, a good stepping stone for him, because if you look at Khabib again, we look at him and his career before the UFC, he wasn't tested as much as he, not saying as much as he should have, but if you look at his record, it is pretty sketchy. And you look at his first UFC fight compared to his last UFC fight, the amount he improved is unbelievable.
Different animal, yeah.
We could see the same happen here with Usman Nurmagomedov. Like he could come in and he's obviously already at a high level, but this could be just the start of something even better for him. I'm sure it will. Like the level of competition that you face in the training room, that's great. But we know that it counts on fight night, and I think this is a good stepping stone for him. But I think he puts Hamel away in this one. Yeah, I think it's going to be a pretty one-sided affair.
Very good. And we move on to the next fight of the night. You have Terrell Fortune versus Jack May. And these guys fought quite recently. It was last year, and it was on that the card from hell that had Raymond Daniels with the spinning back kicks to the dicks. And then you had Jack May with the uppercut to the nuts as well at the 2-0 contests on the same main card. So it was a bit of a freak show that night, unfortunately. Look, these things happen, but it's interesting that Terrell took this one back after getting ranked in the... Now, of course, he didn't know he was going to be ranked when the rankings came out and this fight was already booked. But it's an interesting fight for him that he's fighting a guy that's below him, because everyone above him at this point, anyone he's going to fight up there is a ranked contender in that division. He's obviously coming off the win to Said Soma. His only loss is that loss to Timothy Johnson, the KO loss, and that's kind of a concern. It shows that he is susceptible to the big hitters, that heavyweight. Timothy Johnson is by no means has been a killer in Bellator. He's put on some great performances, but he's kind of been a little bit hit and miss. But saying all that, Terrell has looked fantastic. 5 KO wins in his 9 wins. He's done it all for Bellator, really. He's kind of worked his way up to, and obviously now we have the rankings and he is ranked, but it's all up after this fight. I see him picking up a KO victory here over Jack May. I don't think he's quite at that level. He's coming off a loss himself, and 1-4 and 1 no contest in his last 6. It doesn't exactly spark inspiration. So yeah, it's KO for me for Terrell.
Yeah, it's gonna be Terrell all day here on this one for me, but I'm still undecided whether he'll take a decision, a comfortable decision, or he'll get the finish. I can see him using his athleticism and his wrestling to take May down, frustrate him, tire him out, and TKO him. But I can also see him going to stretch with it and getting some cage time. He's relatively young in his career. He's 9-1, and I think he'll feel comfortable in there. We've all had long layoffs to be, maybe he wants to extend that a little bit more, the time in the cage, which does no one any harm. I think the matchup, when we look at the heavyweight division, it's not as stacked as many divisions. So you're going to see, guys from top 10 fighting well back, you know what I mean? Guys that are maybe ranked 15 plus. So we're going to see that time and again. But I think all things considered, I think Fortune takes this. I'm going to go with a decision on it, even though I think he's definitely skilled enough to take it by a finish by TKO. But I'm going to go with a finish on this one.
For sure.
Or sorry, a decision on this one.
Decision, no problem at all. And we also have in the co-main event, we have Neiman Gracie versus Jason Jackson, which is a phenomenal. And I know you're buzzing for this fight.
I love this fight.
Yeah, Neiman is 10-1, coming off that huge win over John Fitch, and the guy just looks incredible when he hits the mat. 9 submission wins. He's 8-1 with Bellator, and let's not forget before that he started his career in World Series of Fighting. So there's no easy fights on this guy's record. He's 10-1 against legit opponents, and then on the other side you have Jason Jackson, who's been one of the standout stars for Bellator in the last couple of years. He's on a 3-fight win streak. You have Benson Henderson, Jordan Main, and Kichi Kunamoto since that loss to Ed Root. So he's 3-1 with Bellator overall. What do you make of this fight?
I love this fight. I fucking love this fight. What I love most about it is these are 2 real bad men. Like they fight whoever is in front of them. There's never any bullshit with them. And they always put on a good display. Neiman Gracie, his jiu-jitsu is off the charts. Every time I think I see what his jiu-jitsu is like, I see his next fight and it looks better and better. He just has an enormous arsenal of jiu-jitsu technique. He's an absolute shark when he hits the mat. And then Jason Jackson is a gritty, hard-hitting finisher, a really good someone that I've been watching now for the last couple of years. I think looks massively impressive every time he's out. It almost goes back to the early UFC days of a striker versus grappler, but both Gracie can strike and Jackson can grapple, but Gracie is an absolute specialist when it hits the deck, and Jason Jackson has a fantastic striking skill, so it kind of has that feel of striker versus grappler.
Yeah, I
have Gracie in this. I can see Gracie weathering a storm, dealing with the strikes and getting it to the floor. He's one of these guys. He kind of reminds me of Marcelo Garcia, where Marcelo Garcia will have like a fantastic guillotine and it looks like that's his game. And then he'll have this enormous leg lock series and be fantastic at that, and then that looks like his game. And usually jiu-jitsu, you'll have guys that are specialists in one area, like maybe from half guard or maybe from the back, but this guy is a specialist in every facet of BJJ. So I think when it hits the mat, you're in enormous trouble. And we've seen John Fitch, who's an extremely experienced competitor, extremely experienced grappler, pretty much look out of his depth here with Gracie. And I don't think Jackson will be able to fend off these submission attempts. Jackson has a chance in the sense that he comes out and he puts it on and he clips him. He has this God-given power and extremely good skills. But again, a fantastic fight. I could talk about it all night, how much I love it, but I'm going to go with Gracie by submission in this one.
Yeah, I'm of the same opinion. I think Gracie has just looked absolutely phenomenal. And I can remember I was that was one of my fights that I was most excited for last year, was the John Fitch and Neiman Gracie fight, just purely because we knew that these guys weren't going to stand. There was no false pretenses. Oftentimes when you get two legit grapplers, it turns into a striking contest, and it kind of, it becomes one of those affairs where it can become difficult to watch. Especially we've seen John Fitch hit pads. It's not the most exciting thing in the world. But we knew these guys were going to the mat, and it was whoever could impose their will down there. And Neiman Gracie showed what an animal he is when he hits the mat. Take out a guy like Fitch is just it's the highest level in jiu-jitsu.
100%. And I want to see who the winner of this emerged first card of the year co-main event. I want to see the winner emerge to get a title shot. And people might be thinking there's better contenders or whatnot, but these guys don't say no to fights. These guys always entertain. These guys give us what we want. They're real fighters. So that's what I want to see. I want to see whoever emerges victorious, they get the title shot.
Yeah, I wanted to touch on that actually. My prediction obviously is Neiman Gracie by sub as well, just to preface that. But what did you make of Neiman Gracie's comments that he was surprised that it wasn't MVP next? He was asking for MVP, and he even joked, to your reference a while ago, he joked that if it was MVP, he might even come out in the gi and fight him a la Royce Gracie at UFC 1, and that's the fight that everyone wanted to see. Do you think that's the fight that everyone wanted, and two, do you think that's a little bit disrespectful to Jason Jackson, or is it just the case that Jason doesn't have that name yet?
I didn't even hear these comments, to be honest. I had no idea. But look at Gracie's probably trying to set this one up. MVP is a big fight and a big draw.
Yeah.
So if he doesn't get the title shot immediately, he could be fighting MVP. That's a great fight. I'm already on board for that for sure. So he's probably thinking long term of what's next. But I wouldn't be looking past Jason Jackson. That's a dangerous thing to do. I love Jason Jackson's style, and the man comes out and he puts it on anyone who's in front of him. So, but I think, man, I'd love to see that fight. I think Gracie versus MVP will be a belter. It'd be a really good fight. But maybe they're going to go with Gracie Jackson. They're going to go maybe with Lima versus MVP.
Yeah.
And then the winner of this, I think, should fight the champ
winner.
then.
Yeah, if he fights MVP, they've got to let him fight in the gi. It's a no-brainer. It's an absolute no-brainer. I don't know what commission they'll get to do it, but they'll find a way of getting that done. I think from my perspective, I think it's with reference to the fact that MVP was ranked number 1 and the number 1 contender in the division. And I think Neiman Gracie was a little bit put out, because I think a lot of people do consider Neiman Gracie to be the true number 1 contender there at welterweight. So I just think in his eyes, this is the number 1 contender fight, and it was his little subtle way of calling out MVP on that.
I haven't met anyone who's delighted with the rankings anyway, so
yeah,
I'm with Gracie on that. I'm not agreeing with them either. I'm salty.
As far as I know, you didn't fit the criteria, right?
No, but that's what I'm saying. I'm not saying there's anything wrong with the rankings. I think the criteria is shite. I can't be ranked because I've had 1 bantamweight fight, but I've had like 7 Bellator fights. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like Brett Johns hasn't fought in Bellator, but he should be ranked. They shouldn't be just ranking him off. They shouldn't rank the guys based on what they've done in Bellator. They should be ranking their career, what they've done. You can't. This is my opinion, but I just think it's more an issue with criteria than anything else. You know what I mean?
I do think as we move forward over the next 6 months that these issues will be ironed out once everyone becomes active again, and we'll see who the true top 10 are. I think these were they had to get something out, and based on the criteria, it was probably a struggle to get a 10 out in some of the divisions. So look, it is what it is, but I do see things straightening out over the next few months.
Yeah, there's guys in divisions that shouldn't fucking be there. Simple as that. So
for sure, yeah.
Look, at time will tell.
Yeah, and we're moving on to the main event, a phenomenal one. And I go back 6 months ago, I wouldn't have been that excited by the prospect of these two facing off again, because I thought Pitbull had his number. Pitbull, look, we know Pitbull. You could talk about Pitbull all day long. 6-fight win streak. Obviously that KO over Carvalho in the quarterfinals. Decision to Archuleta, and we've seen what Archuleta's gone on to do since then in the opening round of the Grand Prix, and hasn't been beaten since he's lost to Benson Henderson way back. That's 3 years ago, 4 years ago. He's on the 6-fight win streak since then. 3-0 since their last meeting against Sanchez. Sanchez, on the other hand, looked the best I've ever seen him against Wojciech in the last one. It went to a decision, but for me that could have easily been a 50-44, 50-43. He dominated Wojciech from start to finish and just looked like a killer, and it was more due to Wojciech's toughness, I think, that he didn't get him out of there. He obviously had the submission win over Claxton in the opening round. 3-0 since their last fight as well. And his last loss obviously was to Pitbull, before that to Wojciech as well, which makes you think he's had the loss to Wojciech and then came out and looked that good against Wojciech and got the victory in that fashion. If we get the same Sanchez, he's going to give Pitbull a lot of problems here. That said, I think Pitbull ekes out a decision in what could be fight of the year for me, if it goes the way I see it going.
I love this fight again. This is phenomenal. I'm the very same opinion in the sense of I was so impressed with Sanchez in his last fight. I look at fights. I won't catch them all, I'll be honest with you, but I'll catch most of them. But rarely, if ever, do I watch them twice. But I had to watch that Emmanuel Sanchez performance the second time around. He looked fantastic in his outing with Wojciech, and I scored a couple of 10-8s in that, the same as yourself. And it does show the question that he got beat, he made adjustments. He did get beat by Pitbull in a close affair and made adjustments. But you can't say that. You have to say the same thing, should I say, about Patricio. He looks better every time he steps in there. We talked about Jones, we talked about GSP and Demetrius Johnson about being smart, about having a good fight IQ. This is Patricio Pitbull too. His IQ is off the chart. He's able to make adjustments mid-fight. I was super impressed with the one Archuleta fight from him because it went to decision. We got to see a lot of his skills. He was able to take down a wrestler. He was able to outstrike him. He looked very patient. He shows his power. He looks pretty much flawless these days. Sanchez in the last fight was a tight fight. I remember his last loss. Would I be right in saying it was
his last loss was to Pitbull. Before that, it was the Wojciech loss.
No, Pitbull's last.
Oh, Pitbull was the last loss was 7 fights ago. Benson Henderson.
Oh, Henderson. And what was it at featherweight? Was it Strauss?
Jesus, yeah, Strauss.
Yeah, so like
yeah,
that's a long time ago, and he's looked much better since. He's very, very well rounded, very, very smart. However, Sanchez looks super in the last while. I've been going back and forward who to pick. I almost feel foolish not to pick Pitbull. If I go with Emmanuel Sanchez, I can just see a Pitbull get the decision. I'll be like, yeah, of course. You know what I mean? But just based on their, like I always say it in every podcast.
But the upside is there. If Sanchez pulls it off and you've picked him, you look like a genius.
yeah. But I always say you're as good as your last performance.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you look at Sanchez's last performance, it was brilliant. I think that he'll have done his homework, and I think he dethrones Pitbull.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Big call out of the pike, man.
His odds are 2-1. 2-1 on, so plus 210, I think it is. But I'm gonna go with Emmanuel Sanchez in this one. And this isn't the whole, oh yeah, he's picking him now because he's SPG and SPG Pitbull rivalry. That's nothing to do with it. I think Pitbull is a phenomenal fighter, a fantastic fighter. But I have a feeling that Sanchez, it's his time. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm gonna pick him on this one.
Hard to argue with you, and I was very torn on this. The big factor here in why I picked Pitbull is if you could see either guy stopping the fight, it's Pitbull. I just think Pitbull has that KO power that Sanchez is missing. So if they do get into a bit of a firefight at any stage, I think that massively Sanchez is great in a firefight, don't get me wrong. But I think when it comes to power and a shot landing, I think Pitbull has more avenues to victory. than Sanchez does. Sanchez is going to have to get a decision and dominate in activity against a very tough Pitbull. Like we've seen Pitbull knock out Michael Chandler quite recently, and Chandler is on his way to he's going fighting for a UFC lightweight title next. So we know the guy has power.
Look, like I said, Paul, I might look like a fool for picking him, and it's probably the case. And I literally just changed my mind at the start of this podcast. I had Patricio. Like I said, I've been changing my mind back and forward to make things interesting. I'm going to go to Emmanuel Sanchez, and I'm just doing it from what I always say: is you're as good as your last performance. His performance was superb. But this is the beauty about MMA. You're seeing two guys fight at the very highest level here, and it is chess. We could literally spend another hour talking about Patricio and Emmanuel and no one else, and we could break down why we think this guy will win, why we think what openings they might find. You have Sanchez's cardio, you have Pitbull's fight IQ, you've got Sanchez's striking and his willingness to jump on submissions. You've got Patricio's wrestling and anti-wrestling. We could talk about it till the cows come home. This is the beauty about MMA at the highest level. We're going to find out. There's only one way to find out where we get to find out. Right now, I'm picking Emmanuel Sanchez. Ask me in an hour, it'll probably be Pitbull.
Well, we have you on record, so your pick is going up as Emmanuel Sanchez for now anyway. There's no changing from this point forward.
It's certainly not a bet of the week.
Yeah.
But I'm going to give the underdog a chance here. I'm going to see. I'm going to give him the nod.
For sure. And before we move on to our bets of the week, I do want to get your opinion on this. So if you have Sanchez, how do you rank him up against AJ McKee and that style?
I was in there with AJ, and he's excellent. He's very, very explosive, very dynamic. I think both of these guys will give a much bigger problem than any other competition that he's faced in this Grand Prix. The reason why I had a bit of success with AJ is because I know how to fight southpaws well. Most guys fight southpaws the same way as they fight orthodox, which is a massive mistake. Both these guys are vets. Both these guys come from excellent camps, and I think that's why they will. I think that's why the winner of this will be the winner of the tournament.
Ooh,
I think they'll give AJ his first loss. I think.
I'd be on the side that I think AJ beats either or, just based on the momentum he's picked up, and he looks better and better and better every time out. But yeah, look, like you say,
he does.
They keep the narrative. Bellator have said is that these are the three best guys in the world, and it's hard to argue with that. And there's nearly a coin flip between them. I'd say if they all fought off 10 times, it would be split right down the middle, on who'd pick up victories. We do need to move on. Sorry, go on.
I was speaking to AJ after his last fight. I congratulated him. I said he looked phenomenal. I'd love to see him win. I would.
Yeah.
Hand on my heart, I'd love to see him win. But I just think these guys, their experience will really shine through. But that's, again, you're as good as your last fight. Let's see what they produce here on tomorrow night. You know what I mean? And then we can make up our mind.
For sure. Okay, bets of the week. I'll go first this week. I have a relatively straightforward one because I am so far behind in the bets of the week. Mine is a treble. I have Kana Watanabe, Magomedov, and Terrell Fortune all to win. How about you?
I'm going to be less of a pussy here, and I'm going to go with Neiman, Gracie, Fortune, Nurmagomedov, and Magomedov from the prelims all to win. So 4 bets, probably less odds. Let's be honest, but that's who I'm going to go with. I think you put money down in this, you're getting money back for certain. The only, no, I'm actually very happy with that. I didn't pick Watanabe, who I do think will win. I was to and fro, but Lara Wheeler
very tough girl.
About. Yeah, so that's why I think Gracie, Fortune, or Magomedov, and Magomedov both or all, should I say, get the wins with ease.
Yeah, the thing with Kana is she's probably not the best prop bet because she's a big favourite against Lara, who it shouldn't be that much of an underdog. Let's be fair about it. She's a very tough girl.
Yeah.
But it's the only money on my bet, so I had to put it in. It was either that or Gracie, and I was trying to pick which one I was more confident on, and I'm probably a little bit more confident on Kana picking up the victory.
Look, it's I would urge people to get on board and and see the first Bellator card. I know I know I'm being a company man now again, but it's great to see the Bellator turn, and we're in for a massive treat with this card. It's a savage card.
Yeah, and a lot of cards coming up as well. They're going to be coming out thick and fast from Bellator now over the coming weeks. So a lot of fights to be excited for. Unfortunately, that is the end of the show for today. Thank you very much for coming on again with us today, Brian.
No, my pleasure, man. My pleasure.
No problem. And be sure and subscribe on YouTube and head over there and give us a like on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter as well at Guts and Glory MMA.